What's up, friends? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Thanks so much for joining me today. Good to be back. Had a couple days off as I attended the game at Lambeau and had a couple other things going on. So huge thank you to Jimmy and Alex, as well as Jason, for filling in for a couple days while I was out. But like I said, good to be back today talking Packers. It was a bit of a crazy weekend, from Christmas party to World Cup party to friends in town to tailgating for the Packer game, going to the Packer game. Needless to say, I'm a little bit tired, a little bit exhausted. Probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode today. Going to be primarily focusing on the defensive side of the ball. Went through all my grades for defense so far. I did get the tape a little bit later on Monday, the All-22 tape, so haven't had the opportunity to go through the offense yet, but we'll be reviewing the defense's grades today. Then we'll touch base on the offense a little bit more tomorrow, and then we'll start preparing for Packers-Dolphins. Before I get there, I wanted to go over, I mentioned pregame that, like, if you haven't had the opportunity to attend Lambeau yet, like, it's just a absolute must do. I don't care if it is 5 degrees, in fact, even more, if it, more appropriately, if it's 5-10 degrees, whatever it was. Man, that stadium was freezing. That stadium was amazing. And it's just one of those experiences that it's so hard to take for granted. Every single time you go, it is special. It is a absolute monument of sports. And you go there and you walk in and you just, Lambeau opens up and you see everything in its beauty and its glory. And the night games are amazing. To go there when the breath is coming off the players and you can just see it coming off their face. Like, man, it is just such a special place. So like I said, even if in a couple weeks from now, Packers, Vikings, Packers, Lions, even if those games end up not meaning anything, if the Packers are somehow eliminated from the playoffs prior to that, don't feel like, hey, well, you know what, that's not a game. Like, trust me, Lambeau is still majestic and there's a mystique about it no matter what. And that was the feeling that, again, I had all over again going to the Rams game. So I had a blast at that game. And I try to get to at least one game every year as a fan and not just sitting in the press box, which is still amazing. And you still get to see kind of everything that's going on, obviously. But it's just something different being in there as a fan in the bowl. And like I said, try to do that at least once a year. So this is my game this year. So love the atmosphere once again. Fun game, good Packers victory. If you're looking at playoff percentages, they are now, depending on what source you go to, about a 12% chance of making the playoffs. The biggest thing that is still holding them back is the odds of them actually winning their 3 games. We're about to see what this Packers team is made of the remainder of the season with 3 much more difficult games. Listen, it is great to beat the Bears and the Rams. The Bears and the Rams, both very, 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 very bad football teams right now. And you can only beat the team that's across from you. No question about it. You don't apologize for it. But those are wins that this team, which was desperate for wins, needed to pick up. Now things will get much more challenging. Miami in Miami on Christmas Day. And then, of course, Vikings and Lions after that. 2 teams that, man, Vikings, what an insane, crazy comeback, frustrating comeback if you're watching that as a Packer fan. But one of the all-time great comebacks. Give them credit for that, even though we don't really like to give them credit here. But that was pretty incredible. Just complete implosion from the Colts. Like, how do you lose 33-0? Like, you have to try to lose when you're up 33-0. That is just a beyond insane game. And then, the Lions just playing some of their best football since probably Kelvin Johnson, right? So it's been a hot second since the Lions have played football like this, and they're deserving of their record as well. So these 3 games about to be much tougher for Green Bay. If they win out, they're over about a 70 or right around like a 75% chance of making the playoffs. Basically just need Seattle to lose 1 game and then need Washington to lose 2 or 3. Washington could easily lose their next 2, and Seattle could lose this week. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Green Bay could, not easily, but could certainly get the help that they need. And, again, probably the toughest thing for Green Bay moving forward is just going to be getting the 3 wins that they need. But anything is possible at this time. And like I said, they're about a 12% chance, depending on what site you want to trust at this point in time. A couple other pieces of news and notes really quick. Sammy Watkins claimed off of waivers. He goes to the Ravens on the same day that they lose Devin Duvernay. Huge loss for them. That Ravens receiver core, not very good at the moment, but they will get Sammy Watkins and he'll have an opportunity to contribute in Baltimore, a place that he is familiar with, a place that he has played. He has played with Lamar Jackson when Lamar gets back. But nice claim for Sammy Watkins, going to a competitor for the remainder of this season. And then the other piece of good news for Green Bay, A.J. Dillon was cleared from his concussion protocol, so should not be an issue on a short week this week as the Packers again take on the Dolphins on Christmas Day, which should be a very fun game, and it looks like they will have A.J. Dillon for that game. So, as I mentioned, going to be kind of quickly going over the defense today. This was an interesting game. Like I said, if you look at this Rams offense, man, Tyan Sege played well at left tackle for them. Like, you know, they had a couple okay runs. Baker Mayfield would make a throw here and there. Like, they don't have much that you're losing sleep over as a defensive coordinator. You had a couple frustrating Joe Barryisms where, you know, it's 3rd and short or 3rd and 17 and defensive backs are just playing so far back. There are a few plays in this game where the Rams converted on plays where you couldn't even give the negative to any of the defensive backs on the play just because the way that they were set up, they were not put in a position to make a play on the ball or stop a first down from happening, which again is not a situation that you generally want to be in. I still want it, like, those are few and far between, but those things are frustrating. You still don't want to see them happen at all. And we saw a couple of those in this game as well. But overall, I thought this was a positive performance from the Packers defense. Like I said, you can only play the players that are across from you. This is only the 4th time all season so far that the Packers defense as a whole graded in the positive. Before we get into some of the grades, some interesting snap counts for this defense. Darnell Savage, 1 snap on defense, actually a completion right in front of him, not totally his fault, but a completion right in front of him, 1 snap on defense in dime defense in this game for Darnell Savage. Basically a full-fledged benching of Darnell Savage, which is kind of what we expected when he got the dime roll a couple weeks ago prior to going down with the injury. Comes back from injury. He is still the dime defensive back. They only played 1 snap a dime. He is gone from any actual plans to be in this nickel defense, starting defense, etc. So a major change there. And again, I know it was a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago, whatever it was, that we saw him again, basically demoted to dime defense, but he went out on the first play. So you didn't know if maybe they would make changes as the game went along. No changes. And this is very much deserved, meaning that he should have been benched. He's still by far and away my lowest graded defender on the season in a bad season for the defense. So I like the change for Green Bay. I think it was necessary. Hopefully it sends a message. Savage is primarily a special teams player right now, and that's going to have to be something that he has to work his way back from. As you remember, he is a guaranteed contract going into next year. The only way that they can get off of it is if they trade him, and he will almost assuredly have negative trade value. So they would actually probably have to put some sort of draft capital on Darnell Savage's contract in order to get rid of that. They could do some restructuring. Probably, like, it gets very wonky. Like, they'd have to work with him to restructure some of his deal as well, and his agent may not want to do that. So yeah, it could get a little bit sticky with the Packers and what ends up happening with Darnell Savage. But this is a full-on benching of Savage. Number 2 is you have 3 defensive. So Kenny Clark clearly getting the lion's share of the defensive line snap still. Jarran Reed is now very much in that number 2 spot. And then in this game, you had 3 defensive linemen who are basically rotating the rest of the way. Dean Lowry gets 11 snaps. TJ Slayton gets 10. Devonte Wyatt gets 9. It is still crazy to me that we're at this point in the season and Devonte Wyatt can't get 10 snaps. It's like 9 snaps every single week. And he generally grades in a very slight positive every single week, makes a couple plays, has a few plays still where his pad level and his technique are just off and he gets washed out of the play a little bit, but also will have two plays, and same as he did this week, had 2 plays on tape this week that make you go, okay, why is this guy not on the field more? But those 3 apparently more of a rotation, with Reed being the number 2 and Clark being the number 1. And then on the defensive back side of things, we talked about Darnell Savage. Keyshawn Nixon and Rudy Ford played every single snap on defense. Rudy Ford, the clear and obvious starting safety opposite Adrian Amos, which has been for some time now, or a couple weeks now at least. But he played every snap. And then Keyshawn Nixon, every snap on defense. He is the slot guy. So this defensive backfield now for the Packers is Rasul and Jair on the outside with Keyshawn in the slot. Rudy Ford and Adrian Amos at safety, and Darnell Savage comes in as the dime if they need to go to 6 defensive backs. So that's where things are right now. I don't necessarily see that changing. Nixon and Ford have earned their spots on this defense. Nixon had a really nice week this week. Ford had about a neutral week this week. They just need those two because they play fast. They play physical. They're not afraid to tackle. And you know what? They make some mistakes sometimes, and they're not perfect players in coverage. But you know what? Matt LaFleur has asked his defenders and his players to play at 110% and make mistakes fast. And when Nixon or Ford make a mistake, more often than not, they make it fast, and they just bring a level of physicality and intensity that this defense so desperately needed. And I think that this is really... I don't think either of these guys are going to revolutionize the Packers defense, but it was an influx of attitude and effort that this defense sorely needed. And quite frankly, Eric Stokes and Darnell Savage, 2 first-round picks, I would make a very strong argument, especially in what we've seen this year, that Keyshawn Nixon and Rudy Ford actually had been significant upgrades over those 2 first-round picks, Eric Stokes and Darnell Savage, through this season so far. In fact, Nixon, graded in the positive so far this season. Eric Stokes, my 2nd lowest graded defender on the year. Darnell Savage, as mentioned, my lowest graded defender. Rudy Ford, my 3rd highest graded defender on the year. So night and day difference. And listen, as I've told you guys over and over and over and over, the grades are not a be all end all for, everything. You can't catch everything just no matter what. I grade every player and every play, but it goes to show you these things are on the right track, right? Because I said all year long, Sammy Watkins was struggling, one of my lowest graded players on offense. He ends up getting cut. I tell you about Darnell Savage, lowest graded player on defense. He ends up getting benched. There's certain things that when you watch every player and every play, you're just going to catch up on some of these trends ahead of time. And yes, tooting my own horn a little bit, there will be things that I get wrong, as I've said numerous times. Won't be the first time, won't be the last, but the grades are worth checking out because it's just so much easier when you're watching every player and every play to check and view these trends in as they're happening and as you're going through the grades every week. And some of the grades have really reflected what Green Bay has done with benching certain players, starting certain players, and even releasing and cutting certain players. So let's go over some of the top grades for this week. 3 highest graded Packers: Kenny Clark, Preston Smith, Jaire Alexander. Love the performances from all 3, especially Kenny Clark. I talked against the Bears how Kenny Clark bounced back a little bit. I thought this was a really, really good week from Kenny Clark. Eating double teams, splitting double teams, and getting pressure. He was the one who is forcing the interception on the Rasul Douglas interception, getting a hand on the quarterback as Baker's trying to throw that pass, getting into the backfield. This was more of the disruptive Kenny Clark, again, splitting double teams, holding up, just being a menace in the middle of the field. I can't say it enough. I will say it again. This defense goes as Kenny Clark goes. He played really well in this game. The defense played well, graded in the positive. Usually that starts with Kenny, and this was the case. Highest graded defender, and the Packers overall had a really nice day on defense. Preston Smith, number 2. Green Bay's needed this type of performance from Preston Smith. He gets sacks, he gets pressures. He, did a good job setting the edge as he usually does. I thought this is one of Preston's better performances on the season, and came up with timely plays too. Some really big 3rd down plays and pressure, sacks, etc. So again, one of Preston's better performances in the entire season so far. And then Jaire Alexander, a couple odd plays here and there, but PFF and I did not agree on much this week on defensive grades. They had him in the negative or below a 60, which is average for a player, or neutral kind of. And I had him positive. I really liked what he did in coverage in this game. I thought his zone coverage was really, really good. Some of the best of the season. He came up a little bit more aggressively on some plays. Still missed a tackle here or there. He had a weird, like I said, just a couple weird plays. But overall, really liked this performance from Jaire. So 3 highest graded players: Kenny Clark, Preston Smith, and Jaire Alexander. My 3 lowest graded players: Adrian Amos, Rasul Douglas, and Jarran Reed. Jarran Reed was nothing crazy or nondescript, just had a play here or there where he got off of blocks, but for the majority of the day struggled to get off of blocks and make his presence known in any real way. I'll talk about Amos next. Amos had a couple nice plays. He had the one really, really nice play where he shot up on defense and had a tackle in the backfield where he tripped up the receiver. I think it was on like an end around. That was a really, really nice play by Adrian Amos. And he had a couple of those in this game, which has been a rare sight for Amos. So there were some positives, but man, just some plays from the safety at depth where you've got to be the last line of defense. And he's got the pass interference penalty one-on-one on a receiver. Good job of Sean McVay getting a matchup with the speediest wide receiver on a safety, the Packers' slowest safety on the outside. So that was a really good matchup that they were able to get in that situation. But he has the big pass interference play on that. There's another play where the Rams running back cuts to the right and goes right past Adrian Amos, who's far too often this season, his feet have just been kind of caught in mud and he can't move laterally and can't keep his feet moving and change directions the way that he used to. Again, it's unfortunate, but he's just a step and a half slower this season. It just sucks so bad because, as I've told you before, huge fan of Amos's work in Green Bay and in Chicago prior to this season. And you just hate to see a guy that just can't perform just because the speed is no longer there. And that's just been the case with Amos so far this season. And then Rasul Douglas, a super bizarre game because he has a couple plays in coverage where he's in man coverage where he looks fantastic, but he's involved in the touchdown reception. He's involved in a couple big third down plays that were converted where he's just beat cleanly on the play. And then arguably one of the weirdest plays that I've ever graded, Rasul's interception. The first time I can't even imagine, like it's almost unfathomable that a player could get an interception and grade negative on the play. But let me walk you through this because it's an interesting one, right? Rasul is in zone. He is chilling in his zone, just kind of standing there, to be honest. He did nothing to set up this interception or to like fool the quarterback or anything. He's literally like, he might as well have a lawn chair just chilling back there, like ready for the ball to come his way. He did nothing of any significance to set up that interception. So you've got to do something of significance to set it up, right? He's in the right spot at the right time and he catches the interception. That's something, right? However, when I look at this play on tape, he kind of waits for the ball to come to him and he doesn't exactly like high point it. Now, it's not like Rasul Douglas is Kelvin Johnson or a wide receiver, right? But if he gets any momentum going up, because that ball is just lollipopping to him, right? Like if it looked more like a punt that he was ready to fair catch. If he attacks that ball even a little bit, just a little bit, rather than just kind of, again, relaxing and letting the ball come to him, I think he beats the wide receiver that's behind him. I think he has a real legit chance to score on that play. Like if he just has a bit more urgency on that play and like catches it and then goes, or like catches it on the run even a little bit, I think he has, like I said, a very legit opportunity to score. If not score, probably get that thing down to like the 10, 15 yard line at the worst. Like even if things go really bad, like that should be like 1st and 10 from the 15 yard line. Instead, he doesn't catch it with any urgency, just kind of lets it fall to him. Again, didn't do anything to set up the pick, and then gets twirled around by the receiver, caught from behind, and then blindly laterals it backwards, which could have been a huge turnover. So despite that actually being a very positive play in the end, an interception, which almost always grades, well into the positive, actually ends up being a slight negative grade on Douglas for that one because, again, he didn't actually do really anything to earn the interception and then almost like throws the ball away, completely careless with the ball. Like you said, if he just kind of accelerates with it a little bit, probably should have had a chance to score. So just a very odd game for Rasul. Lastly, the other thing I wanted to mention in this game, the 3 rookies on defense, Devonte Wyatt, JJ Enagbare, Quay Walker. These guys are playing, Walker and Enagbare are playing significant snaps. As mentioned, Wyatt's playing about 9 snaps. But overall, combined, playing a decent amount of snaps. All 3 graded in the positive in this game. And that's no easy task for rookie players. So Quay, Enagbare, and Wyatt all grade in the positive, and you love to see that. This rookie class continues to impress, and this was another really nice performance from all 3 of those rookies. In the end, you've got a bad Rams offense, a couple Joe Barry-isms here and there, but this is a better performance from the defense, a defense that rallied to the football better, that played better team defense, and that came up with some big plays when they absolutely needed it. give up the 1 touchdown, give up some frustrating third downs, but a much better performance, a winning performance, a positive graded performance, and you love to see that from the defense. Hopefully they can stack success and continue to do that for the remainder of the season. I'll be hitting down the offense tomorrow, so make sure to check that out. As always, I'll be here 365 days a year. At least we will. I know I miss a day here or there, but I think you guys still get me about 330-ish days at minimum per year. So I appreciate you guys still checking it out when I'm out, and appreciate all the Pack-A-Day team for filling in when I need a break here or there. But I will be back tomorrow. I don't have any days off for the very, 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 very foreseeable future. So as long as I can stay healthy, you should be stuck with me for a while. So apologize for that in advance. Thanks for joining me. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.